Hi, this is AP and VP, SEC, ACC, conference coverage. I'm AP Stedham from LA, Lower Alabama, multimedia personality, along with my co-host, former University of California defensive back extraordinaire, DP, Doug Parrish. Hey, Doug.
Hey, AP, good to be with you today.
Good to be with you. Hey, Doug, we had a great weekend. We had the ACC come to Alabama, California Bears, and we had Auburn of the SEC hosting the Bears. Came up on the short end of that score, 21-14. I love the way Fernando Mendoza, I love saying his name, number one. I love the way he played quarterback. He was so graceful in the pocket, sliding from left to right, accurate with his throws. He was exceptional in the first half. I think he was either 15 for 17 or 17 for 19. But I enjoyed watching that team with the receivers, the defense. They had edge rushers that got to Peyton Thorne, the Auburn quarterback, and that was an excellent victory for the California Bears. They came to the Plains and beat Auburn.
Well, I thought it was an exciting game. It was one of the most exciting games that I've attended in a long time. I think Justin Wilcox, he had his team ready, pumped up, and geared up to go. The factors of the heat and the humidity were just that. They were not a factor because Cal Berkeley came in here into Auburn with a sense of urgency. Like you said, the edge rushers and the linebackers were wrapping up on the running backs. So they had no choice but to get the ball in the air because they were typically at a deficit throughout the game. Right. But that opened up the doors for the cornerbacks and the defensive backs for Cal. And I knew that they were going to have an awesome game. They were pumped up. In pregame, I could see the energy that they had, and they came out firing on all cylinders, which is a former defensive back. It's just music to my ears, AP. I tell you, it was a great game.
Yeah, I was disappointed with Auburn because they now have some receivers that are SEC caliber, and they didn't have the rhythm, though. We know that passing is rhythm, Doug, right? 1-2 pass, 1-2-3 pass, 1-2-3-4 pass, 1.5 pass.
Sure.
But they didn't have any rhythm in their passing game. They had over 100 yards in the first half. I think they ended up in 165 for the game. They were able to run the ball some in the second half, but California put the pressure on them. And defensively, they just stayed after Auburn's quarterback, Peyton Thorne. And the Tigers, in the crowd, they were disappointed because they're expecting much more from that offense. And this is one of the games where you're trying to win to stay in contention to reach a bowl game. So Auburn, they were not satisfied, I'm sure, and they're going to be trying to get that offense straightened out. If it's against it doesn't matter if it's against Cal or any opponent. That passing game is not going to make it against SEC type teams because you must have that rhythm. But anyhow, Doug, we're gonna move on here to the schedule.
Sure.
And I'm gonna start off with a couple SEC games. The first one is Georgia and Kentucky. Georgia 2-0. They're rolling along. Carson Beck is playing very well defensively. They're stopping teams. They beat Tennessee Tech 48-3, coming off that 34-3. Humiliation of Clemson. And so Georgia travels to Kentucky. Now, what makes this game interesting, Doug, is Brock Vandagriff is the quarterback for Kentucky, transferred from Georgia native, won a state title, I believe, there. Been sitting on the bench behind Carson Beck, expecting big things from him. The Wildcats lost 31-6 to South Carolina. Brock completed 4 passes, Doug, last Saturday. 3 to his team, 1 to the other team for a pick 6. So they could not get anything going offensively. Total disaster for Kentucky. They must have simpatico and an alliance with the offensive line, the receivers, the running backs, the tight end, the quarterback, because how many games are you going to win with 6 points, Doug? It's just almost impossible. So Kentucky can get blown off the field by Georgia if they don't get ready this week. So that's my first game that we're going to discuss. And matter of fact, excuse me, Georgia's a 24.5-point favorite on the road, Doug.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
That's a big score, right?
That's a big score. Well, Georgia's they're predominantly they're the bell tower for college football right now, being ranked in the top 3,
Oh yeah,
typically, and probably number 1 in most cases. So,
yeah,
Georgia definitely is going to be bringing the hat when they go into Kentucky.
oh
But
yeah,
one of the things that people underestimate, though, a lot of times is the fact that you just brought up is that the quarterback is going to be playing. He's from Georgia. So that's going to be a huge motivation for him to do well, try to
yeah.
redeem the team.
Oh yeah, sure. That's going to be quite a team to redeem yourself, the number 1 team in the country. But anyway, moving on, Doug, we have another. Yeah,
Yeah.
we have another conference game. College game day will be there. LSU Tigers 1-1 versus the team we just discussed, South Carolina, sitting at 2-0, and they surprised with Lenora Sellers on offense. He's a big, strong player, 6'3", 230 pounds, from the state of South Carolina. Had a pretty good game, but he has a tendency to fumble in that pocket. So he's got to play better. They're hosting the Tigers from LSU. LSU, the running back is out, John Emery Jr. for the season, so that's a negative for the Tigers. The Tigers have 2 offensive tackles, Doug, probably drafted very high. Will Campbell and Emory Jones. Doug, this is the matchup of the game. The 2 offensive tackles for LSU versus Dylan Stewart, the freshman for South Carolina, and Kyle Kennard. They're both around 6'5", 6'6", 250. They come off that edge, Doug.
Yeah.
I can't wait to see this at some point. I mean, I'll be covering the game myself, but on the replay, to watch those 2 tackles go against the 2 edge rushers for South Carolina. They're playing at home. We know that Carolina always has an exceptional crowd. They're loud, they're vociferous, and they're very loyal. But can LSU, with Garrett Nussmeier as their quarterback, he's a pocket quarterback, can they have balance? Can they have balance? Because it gets down to no running game, and those 2 edge rushers are teeing off. It could be a long day for the Tigers. The Tigers are a 7.5-point favorite on the road, but I just think that LSU, they better be blocking for that quarterback, because I'm not sure that they can keep up both of those edge rushers on every play. In South Carolina, they're probably not going to score a lot of points. So they scored 31 last week. They had some help with some fumbles and things by Kentucky and interception, pick 6, of course, but 7.5-point favorite. So can Lenora Sellers and company with South Carolina, can they have no turnovers, play good defense, field position, and eke out a win over LSU? I think it would be a tight game for South Carolina to win. And we remember that South Carolina, the running back Raheem Rocket Sanders, played at Arkansas, had over 1,000 yards with Arkansas a couple of seasons ago, was injured the last couple of years with South Carolina. He needs to have, I'm thinking, 80 to 100 yards for South Carolina to be successful in this game.
Against LSU Tigers, definitely.
Yeah.
Those are your top 2 picks for this week, AP.
Yeah.
I'm going to transition over to the ACC, and I'm going to take a look at our friends over in BC, in Boston College. They play against Missouri, and Missouri is going to be at home this week. So Missouri, I think it's like a 16-point favorite in that game.
Right.
Yeah, and Brady Cook, Mizzou's quarterback, he looks to be firing on all cylinders right now.
He's very good.
Yeah. And then you take a look at these defense, though. They will be tested, and especially with their secondary, right? So when you have a good quarterback that could sit back there and rip you apart, the secondary on the opposite team has to be able to make some plays, get in there, make some deflections, cause some turnovers, so that the team can have some momentum. I'm looking forward to seeing the Max Tuckers of the world and the Amari Jacksons in the secondary step up to the plate and see what they can do against a great quarterback like Brady Cook. Now, there are a lot of unknowns, right? So BC has to be dominant at the line of scrimmage, and they have to be firing early and often in the beginning of the game, just like they've been doing typically throughout the season already.
Right. Yeah, Doug, that's one of those games we mentioned 8 or 9 this season that pits the SEC versus the ACC. And I know Boston College with Thomas Castellanos, he transferred in from University of Central Florida. Doug, he was second in the nation for quarterback rushing behind Jaden Daniels last year, 1,100 plus yards. So he's an
Wow.
outstanding runner. Not big. He's 5'10", but he's very effective. So Missouri has to be cautioned to corral him at some point because he could cause you difficulties all game. And Bill O'Brien is the coach of BC. We know that he's familiar with the SEC, having been an assistant at Alabama. He coached at Penn State in the Big Ten as well as the Houston Texans. But BC is a team that went on the road, Doug, in the ACC, beat Florida State in Tallahassee by double digits.
That's
so
right.
They're not afraid to be on the road. They're not afraid at all to be on the road. And we know that we always mention when we speak of Missouri, our favorite player is Luther Burden III, the wide receiver. You know, he can return some punts and things. Also, Doug, last week, Theo Weiss, the transfer wide receiver from Oklahoma, I believe he caught 13 passes for Missouri. Nice. So that's a nice combo, dual combo with those two receivers. And Brady Cook, we know he's a dual threat quarterback himself, can make some plays with his legs, and he's a good passer. So Mizzou at home, they're trying to duplicate last season, Doug. 11 wins, trying to get to the play. They're one of the teams. And this is a game in the SEC, the only two ranked opponents playing each other. You have Mizzou at 6, Boston College at number 24, both 2-0. So that's a game that I think people are going to have a lot of fun watching.
Absolutely. And then you talk about, the ACC, Cal Berkeley, who we just talked about, they're going to be at home this weekend, and they play against in-state rival San Diego State. So, San Diego's coming up, trying to put a mark on Cal Berkeley, and they know that Cal has just came off a huge, monumental win against an SEC opponent. And so it's going to be a challenge to see if Cal can maintain their composure, be level-headed after coming, off a huge win against Auburn. And, of course, you mentioned Fernando Mendoza, who's their starting quarterback, had a phenomenal first half. One of the best, I believe, you've ever seen and I've ever seen. And we just were – he's just an excellent player. Cal, in a long time, they're looking to go 3-0, right? That's music to my ears as my alma mater. But, we got to just be as the media, we have to be impartial. We have to be
sense of fairness. Yeah, we keep it real, right? We keep it real.
Yeah. And hey, you talk about the big games that Cal played last week. I mean, you got to take a look at Fernando. He was an outstanding player in that game. Then you also got to take a look at Noel Williams, who also he's their secondary leader, but he also can return kicks. He returned one for a touchdown 2 weekends ago that gave them the momentum to win the game. I mean, overall, Cal's defense was just firing on all cylinders again. They got 5 takeaways in that game, and San Diego State is 1-1 right now. They're looking to redeem themselves against a loss to Oregon State last weekend.
Was that game very close, Doug? Do you remember? You have the score?
1-0.
21-0 was the score. Yeah. They shut them out. And San Diego State through the years, Doug, you'd be more familiar being in California at times in your career. They have a tendency probably to have a chip on their shoulder because maybe they wanted to be recruited by Cal.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, when you think about San Diego State, you think about Marshall Faulk, right? I mean, but that was a long time ago. We got they have to get some players, hopefully with NIL and the transfer portal, they'll be able to entice some kids to go down to San Diego, which is a beautiful place to play. San Diego is one of the most beautiful cities in the country or in the world, for that matter. So it's not like they're lacking in terms of ambiance down there. They just need to get on the right track, and they're trying to put a feather in their cap against Cal Berkeley this weekend.
Doug, I guess we can move on to a couple more games from the SEC.
Yeah, okay.
We have Tulane, the American Athletic Conference. They're 1-1. They had a tight ball game with Kansas State. They lost to Kansas State 34-27. And they have a very good redshirt freshman quarterback, Darian Mensah. Doug, he threw for 342 yards against Kansas State. The offense itself had 491. and he's around 65% completion. They have a wide receiver, Doug. They're playing Oklahoma, the SEC. Oklahoma's 2-0. The wide receiver, Mario Williams, Doug, listen to this. He played originally at Oklahoma, transferred to USC. So he's going to play against his old team, Oklahoma.
Whoa.
Mario Williams. So I know there's a lot of motivation for him as well.
Absolutely.
And they have a running back, Mekhi Hughes. Doug, he had 128 yards in the Kansas State game. And Doug, he was the first freshman in Tulane history to run for 1,000 yards as a freshman. So he's very capable. They have some good people on the offensive side. When you rack up 491 yards against Kansas State, you're pretty good on that side of the ball. Their coaches, John Summerall, came from Troy. He's a very good coach because Willie Fritz moved down to Houston, and we'll get back to Willie Fritz in a second because he coached Houston versus Oklahoma. They're having aggressive coverage and pressure, but they lost that game. Now you're looking at Oklahoma, Doug. You're saying, okay, brand new in the SEC. One of the Blue Bloods. Blue Bloods defined as top 10 winners of all time with wins. Yeah. Jackson Arnold's the quarterback, but my friends in Oklahoma have told me, and I think this played out last week on the offensive line, defensive lines. I don't know if they're SEC ready. They played Houston. They won 16-12. That was a tight ball game. So they have some things to shore up on the offensive side of the ball. Tulane is not a team to sleep on with that type of offense. I mean, when you score just 16 points against Houston, you better watch out with a team like Tulane that put 27 and 491 yards on Kansas State. So they're looking to play much better football on the offensive side. I would say the offensive line is average at this point. They're looking to improve. So that's a tight ball game. Oklahoma's playing at home, favored by 14.5 points, Doug. 14.5 points.
Is that your two for
we just have one more, Doug. One more. Okay. We're going to travel up to Wisconsin. You know that territory, Wisconsin.
Oh boy.
Played high school ball up there. I know. And you also know the team. You also know the team that's you also know the team that's traveling there, Alabama.
Really?
So Alabama travels to Wisconsin since 1928, the first time since 1928. They've played each other in Arlington, Texas, neutral site. 1928, the score was 15-0 in favor of Wisconsin. Now we know Wisconsin has the transfer quarterback played high school ball. He's from Connecticut, played at Suffolk, played at Miami for a number of years. He's thrown for over 6,000 yards in his college career, 51 touchdowns, 19 interceptions. Tyler Van Dyke, big quarterback, 6'3" or so, 225 pounds, 6'4". They have the returning receiver, Will Pauling. He caught 74 passes last year, 6 touchdowns. And the offensive line is good, usually with Wisconsin. Alabama's a 13.5-point favorite. But, Doug, Alabama, penalty is Flag Day in Tuscaloosa last week. 13 penalties.
Yeah.
Fumbles. Just not good football. They were neck and neck with South Florida again. That's like a kryptonite team for them. Every time they play South Florida, they edged them out. They took the lead, a big lead in the fourth quarter. 6 minutes, they scored, I think, 3 touchdowns, ended up 42-16. But Alabama travels on the road. Jalen Milroe, Kellen DeBoer, the new coach. This is his first time be playing a Power 5 team on the road. And so that's a big ball game. It starts at 11 Central a.m., 11 Central a.m. So Wisconsin hosting Alabama. Alabama 15.5 point favorite. Watch out for the edge rusher for Wisconsin. John Pius from William & Mary. He had 40 tackles for loss in his career at William & Mary, and he had, I think it's 24.5 sacks. So he transferred to Wisconsin. Watch out for him. Alabama's got a block with her. Offensive line needs to get better.
They need to shore up that offensive line for sure to eliminate those penalties. I believe they're going to put some help on some of those areas to where there's some leakage on that offensive line. If I was Caleb DeBoer, I would definitely make sure that I had some other folks that would be ready to go if any of those offensive linemen started to putter in there. Now, in terms of the global aspect of this game, me being from Alabama, you got the Wisconsin connection from me being up there in high school. I've been hearing a lot from the people in Alabama and from the people that are in Wisconsin. And let me tell you, everybody is excited, especially like my oldest sister. She went from Alabama to go to college at the University of Wisconsin. And a lot of people did that, following her, and she followed other folks. And it's just got a match made in heaven in terms of, these two powerhouse teams. Now, Alabama's going to have to go in there, and do not underestimate Wisconsin. Wisconsin plays against, they're in the Big Ten. They play against the likes of Michigan. They play against the likes of the good teams like Iowa. I mean, so don't underestimate. Don't go in there thinking that, this is just a pushover game. No, this is not a warm-up game for Alabama. This is a true contest that they will be challenged in all facets of the game: offense, defense, and special teams.
I think Wisconsin needs to keep the scoring low. I would say in the 20s. If they get to the 30s, I don't know. I'm not positive, but I'm not sure if they can keep up in the 30s with Alabama. If they probably keeps the score in the 20s, they have a chance. Right. So what do we have in the ACC? The couple games.
One of the top teams that you may be familiar with is Clemson, but guess what? They have a bye this week, so we won't focus too much on them.
No.
All right. So Duke actually plays against University of Connecticut. Now, that sounds like a basketball game, doesn't it? UConn.
Sounds like it. Maybe at halftime.
16-point favorite, right? Duke is at home. I'm looking forward to a challenging game there. Duke is looking to go 3-0 against UConn. But this is like for the first time in a long time. They come into town. Malik Murphy is a dynamic running back. He's already ran 500. Malik Murphy. He's already
quarterback.
Yeah. He's already thrown for 534 yards. He threw it. He's 6'5", AP.
Big quarterback.
230. Now, again, as a defensive back coming in and trying to hit that big dude. Watch out. Ole.
Yeah, it might be some Oles. Doug, I was really impressed with him. He was the backup at Texas, University of Texas. And he's from California, but he's, like you say, 6'5", 230, 240. They always described him as a Vince Young type at the University of Texas. So I think that he's a talent that Duke is lucky to have him because he has exceptional athletic ability, and I think he'll probably become a better passer. But you can beat anybody if you're close with that type of quarterback in the shotgun. We have those options to run and pass.
All right, give me your next two, AP.
Oh yeah, here we're coming up on Ole Miss out of the SEC versus Wake Forest out of the ACC. So we know Lane Kiffin. We've said it before. A lot of pressure on him because Doug, he has a quarterback, Jackson Dart, transferred from USC, third year. He brought in a lot of talent on the defensive side. He has a host of receivers that are probably as good as any unit in the SEC. You're playing Wake Forest, 23.5-point, 22-point favorite on the road. ACC, Hank Bachmeier is taking command at the quarterback position for Wake Forest. Threw for 400 yards. 400 yards last week and lost to Virginia by 1 point. They lost in Winston-Salem 31-30. So you can't sleep on that offensive team because Hank Bachmeier can take command, take control, and move the football. Now we're going to see if Ole Miss's defense is up to the challenge. We know that they're going to score points, Doug. We know that for a fact. But defensively, can Wake Forest get a turnover? They need a few things to happen just to stay and have a chance to compete with Ole Miss, because Ole Miss, they're scoring. They beat last week Middle Tennessee 52-3, and the week before that I think they beat, was it Furman, maybe 7? They put 70 something on the board. So Wake Forest is looking to rebound at home and stave off that offense of Ole Miss. I don't know if that could happen. I don't know.
Well, here's the interesting thing about it. Ole Miss, this is their first game on the road, right, for this season. And so that's going to be an interesting scenario because it's generally you have a better percentage of winning when you're at home. Now, this is the first time being on the road. The good news is Ole Miss has about 900 yards passing already.
That's right.
Talked about the offense. I mean, I'm looking forward to a juggernaut in terms of offenses from both of these squads. Wake Forest has over 723 yards passing. So both of these guys, I mean, do people play defense against these guys?
I don't know. Yeah, defense. I'm not sure if that defensive coach is going to earn their money. I mean, they're going to try, but I think everybody's due for a neck massage after that game, Doug, watching the ball go north and south the entire ball game with Bachmeyer on one side and Jackson Dart on the other. Yeah, Jackson Dart, 795 yards, 6 touchdowns, no interception. I think he's at about 87%.
Sure. Yeah, dynamic players, I tell you. Yep.
Oh, yeah. So Doug, we moved to the next SEC game, Texas A&M. You know, they had that first game loss to Notre Dame at home by 10 points. They're going on the road to Gainesville, Florida. We know that Florida, their coach is on the hot seat, Billy Napier. He got waxed by Miami the first game, 41-14, beat Samford. Doug, they had the quarterback from Texas, DJ Lagway, the freshman, did for 400-plus yards against, it's against Samford. But he's another option for them. Graham Mertz will be the starter. He's going to be coming back from the concussion protocol. But Texas A&M, they have Connor Wigman, who didn't have a good game against Notre Dame, threw for a couple interceptions. I think even in his short-lived career with A&M, he only had a couple interceptions. He threw 2 in the Notre Dame game. So they're a 3.5-point favorite. Texas A&M is on the road against Florida. But and Mike Elko's a new coach, came over from Duke, had some experience being a DC at Texas A&M. But so he has a little more leeway than Billy Napier, who that schedule is the tops in the country. And I don't know how Florida is going to win 6 games this year, Doug. So if they were able to beat A&M, that would be a reason to celebrate in Gainesville, even though you're saying, they beat a team that was 1-1. But with this schedule, Doug, these wins are going to come. There'll be far and few between, I think, with Florida. The Florida Gators will be very difficult.
2 hot weather teams, Texas and Florida, match up. Yeah, it's going to be interesting.
So what do we have? A couple of games in the ACC, Doug.
All right, in terms of the ACC, we have none other than Florida State. And they're at home against Memphis. They are 16-point. Is that a 16? Yes, 16-point favorite.
16-point favorite. Okay. Florida State, they're looking to rebound, get on the winning track,
It is so interesting because, I had them initially in the beginning of the season. I had Florida State at the number 1 spot of the ACC. Memphis is coming in there 2-0. They're going to be favored, Florida State is going to be favored in that they are favored in the game, but Florida State lost obviously against BC, and they need to redeem themselves.
Double digits at home, Doug. Yeah, I was surprised. I was surprised by the loss, but the double digits as well.
Yeah. So, we got to just look at, some of the quarterback play from Florida State and see if they can get the ball to the receivers and make some big-time plays, in a game that everybody's going to be looking at them to see if they're the Florida State of old. But if they come in there shaking and rattling and Memphis puts a spanking on them and they're, end up with a 3-0 record, hey.
0-3. Yeah, 0-3.
Yeah, it should be an interesting game.
Yeah, their quarterback, Doug, DJ, and I'll let you say his last name, but DJ, he has really struggled in college. He came out of California with a lot of accolades, and he ended up transferring to Oregon State, played there last season. Then he transferred to Florida State. They needed a quarterback after their quarterback was playing with the New York Jets now in reserve. But I think people are still waiting to see the best of DJ. And I don't know if it's going to happen.
Right. No, he's going to be a huge factor in this game. And again, you got to look at the secondary as well. From Memphis, if they're going to be able to win this game, then against Florida State, they're going to have to shore up and make sure that they can put themselves in a position so that they're not getting beat on the deep ball.
Right. Oh yeah.
So who else I have is Georgia Tech versus VMI, Virginia Military Institute.
That's coming from Atlanta, Doug. That's in Atlanta, is it not?
Georgia
Yes.
Tech. Yes.
Right.
So that's another interesting game that's on my radar right now. Georgia Tech is a team that is going to probably dominate this game. To be quite honest with you.
I would expect that.
Yeah. So we're looking, to continue to have their winning streak, and they had a loss at Syracuse, so
Yes.
Georgia Tech should have a field day against VMI.
Yeah, I think they'll take it out on the Virginia Military Institute. Haynes King, the quarterback, he's looking to probably play a better ball game, and Georgia Tech going to look to continue their winning ways after that. That was an upset by Syracuse, and all the Syracuse people, I'm sure, are extremely happy.
How are you going to go and beat Florida State, and then come on, man, you got
well. Yeah, they had that upset, Syracuse, but they have that quarterback from Ohio State, Kyle McCourt. He transferred there, so Syracuse has a good. When you have a good quarterback, Doug, you have a chance, right?
Definitely.
So, Doug, I'm looking at a couple SEC games here that'll be blowouts. Kent State out of the MAC, they lost to St. Francis, so this will be a blowout. Tennessee, we know that Nico Maliava is going to be a very good quarterback, I think, in the Josh Heupel system. When Josh Heupel, Doug, has his type of quarterback, it's bad news for everybody else because he's going to put some points on you. He's going to be one of the leading teams in the nation scoring points, and they have a good receiving core. Doug, their defense has gotten better. That front seven, they have James Pierce, led by James Pierce as the edge rusher, and on the upside, he has an excellent teammate. So they have two good edge rushers. Linebackers are good. And then the secondary, Doug, they have newcomers, and they need a little bit more experience, but they're faster, I believe. And so Josh Heupel, he's building this defense over the years now. That's what's going to make him a competitive team to challenge to be in the 12-team playoff. So Tennessee, although they're favored by only 48, Doug, only 48.
That's it.
only 48. So look for Tennessee to roll and just continue to work on their rhythm and their passing game. Dylan, the running back there for Tennessee, had 100 and something yards. Again, he's a very good runner for them. Go to the next game. You have the University of Texas San Antonio. They have a good program. They're coming off a loss to Texas State, though, 49-10. They're playing Texas. We all know what Texas did against Michigan. They had too many receivers. Quinn Ewers was very good up at the Big House on the road. They beat Michigan. They're favored in this game by 30.5 points. Texas 2-0. This is a game, as we spoke to the coach in the teleconference. We heard him, Steve Sarkisian. He's looking to see if his team is mature enough to manage success.
Sure.
So
the teams are in that AP. You look at the likes of, you go back to Cal, they had some success against Auburn.
Right.
A lot of teams are facing that new success in
football
right now with the parity among all of the teams.
Yeah, that's a challenge for the coaching staff. The coaching staff, the leaders of the team. Can you tell your teammates, look, last week, that has nothing to do with today.
Right.
Nothing to do with today.
Over. Next play.
You're making a reputation. Everybody wants to beat you now. There's more incentive. So
target. Yes, you're absolutely right.
Okay, Doug, who we have? A couple games in the ACC.
Yeah, let's take a look at Louisville. They have a bye. Then we got Miami. Miami is going to be playing Ball State. So Miami should have a great day against Ball State.
Yes.
Yeah. So this is their first ever meeting between the two teams.
Okay.
So, hey, Miami is Miami, and it looks like, at home, I just tell you a quick story. I remember playing against Miami when they were actually ranked, I believe, number 3 in the country, and California went down there in the late 80s and played against them. And it was an intense environment playing in the Orange Bowl. I actually had a few oranges thrown at me in that game. Hey, man, we're just a non-ranked team. We're not that good. We're not going to beat your team. But we gave them a good we fought a good game that game. But Ball State is going to be in the same situation. They're coming in there, They're trying to get their feet underneath them and trying to get some momentum for their team. And so if they can, again, the parity among these teams in college football these days, it's any given Saturday, somebody can be beat.
Is there a line for that game, Doug, or is it not available?
I don't think that line is available.
Probably not.
Stand corrected. It's only 36.
Only 36. Okay. All righty. Coming from the MAC, right? Ball State's in the MAC. Yeah, their quarterback, Cam Ward, Doug, he's thrown for about 14,000 yards already in his career with Incarnate and also Washington State. So I think Miami, they paid for him through the NIL. They probably made a good selection. They're probably satisfied at this point because they went up to Gainesville and beat the Gators. One of their in-state rivals, 41-14. So they have a chance. I think they have a chance to compete for the ACC. We shall see how they play defense down the road. But I think Miami's one of the teams you got to keep an eye on in that conference.
Absolutely. What do you got for us?
Okay, we're having New Mexico, Doug, playing Auburn. Now, anytime somebody from Auburn hears the word New Mexico, they get a little frightened because last year New Mexico State, Doug, went in there right before they played Alabama, and New Mexico State beat them by 3 touchdowns. I believe the quarterback was Diego Pavia, who's now at Vanderbilt, and Auburn has to play Vanderbilt, I believe, down the road. Let me just check that on the schedule right quick. That would be, that'll be in November, first weekend in November. But so New Mexico, in New Mexico, Doug, they're scary, and I'll tell you why. They put against Arizona in the first game 39 points, and then they came back with 31 against Montana State. They lost both of them. They gave up 61 to Arizona. But, Doug, when you're only scoring 14 points against Cal, and New Mexico is coming in scoring 30 points per game, even though they're losing, you have to be afraid of that offense. So, in Auburn, we know their passing game has no rhythm. And if you don't have any rhythm, you're easy to defend.
That's right.
Okay, you can't be in the backfield running around looking for receivers. The ball has to be out of your hands in a timely manner, precise, and to the right receiver. So Auburn, I wouldn't take this game lightly because, like I said, New Mexico can score a lot of points.
Right.
Auburn will play good defense, but if they continue to have these 3-and-outs, Doug, that defense will get bludgeoned, and they'll by the mid-season they'll be worn out, and Auburn will have trouble winning ball games.
Sure.
Yeah. So the offensive line is going to have. I think there's a few injuries. They're going to shuffle some people in there. The starting line. The next game, Doug, UAB 1-1. They lost to Louisiana Monroe 32-6. They're going to face Arkansas. Arkansas has a tremendous offense, Doug. It's over 600 yards against Oklahoma State on the road in Stillwater. The quarterback, Taylon Green, 6'6", 230 pounds. He's dual threat. Doug, he threw for over 400 yards. Over 400 yards, and they lost. They lost to Oklahoma State on the road, 38-31 overtime. Excuse me, Doug. They have a running back, very impressive. He's one of the top players coming out of Texas, Doug.
Okay.
Quinton Jackson, 6'2", 233 pounds. He went to Texas for a moment, and then Utah transferred. He had a big ball game, 149 yards on 24 carries, 3 TDs. Nice. But they lost the game. They couldn't hold the lead. It was very disappointing because we know that Sam Pittman's on the hot seat. But Arkansas, I'm telling you right now, Doug, they're going to knock somebody off because that double combination. And they have big receivers, Doug, 6'4", 6'7". One of the receivers, Andrew Armstrong, had 10 receptions last week, 164 yards. Arkansas, Doug, they're going to beat somebody with that offense and play enough defense. And the secondary gave up 326 yards passing to Oklahoma State. The funny thing was, Doug, they held Ollie Gordon, the sensational running back for Oklahoma State, to 49 yards on 17 carries, but they still lost the game. That was very unusual, very unusual. So Arkansas looking to rebound. They're favored by 24 points, Doug.
Yeah, hopefully Trent Dilfer will have his team ready and amped up and ready to go to at least compete against a top-tier team like Arkansas.
Yeah, they need to play better. UAB needs to play better, yes.
Absolutely. Well, the next one, I got North Carolina State against Louisiana Tech. there's a 21-point favorite. North Carolina State is at home. And I think, they're favorite, but they lost to Tennessee in their last game. So they may be ready to rebound or try to prove them to themselves that they are a top-tier team and try to take down the likes of a Louisiana Tech. But I don't know if that's going to come very, very, very easily. What are your thoughts, AP?
Yeah, Doug, I mean, that was a 51-10 loss in a marquee game.
Yeah.
They did not show up. Grayson McCall coming over from Coastal Carolina. I thought they would have a better showing. I thought Tennessee would win the game because, like I said, Josh Heupel has his quarterback, and they're going to score a lot of points. But I just thought North Carolina State playing in Charlotte, they would have a much better game plan and execution, but they were not ready to play, and Tennessee those Volunteers overwhelmed them.
Sure. Next on my list, I have Pitt versus West Virginia. And it looks like Pitt's going to be playing at home. You know, I love that old school stadium there too, Pittsburgh. You know, and
those two teams don't like each other, Doug.
Oh no, they're like blue collar type towns. You know, and
backyard brawl.
Brawl for sure. Pitt has an amazing quarterback though with Holstein, and he has 6 TDs already. Yeah. And they have a good balanced attack because they have a pretty good running back. And then they have a combination of having a good wide receiver with Reed and Mumfield. So both of those guys, the trio of those guys presents a really, really challenge for a defense.
Yeah, West Virginia, Pittsburgh. Doug, you have the spread on that game?
2.
Yeah, I'm going to say it's got to be, tight ball game. Yeah.
Yeah, very tight.
Like a pick'em type game. 2 points is a pick'em game to me almost, right?
That's right.
No.
Game. What do you got?
I have Vanderbilt, Doug, 2-0 with that quarterback, Diego Pavia, transfer from Mexico State with his OC, offensive coordinator, playing Georgia State. They're only a 10-point favorite. They're going to travel to Atlanta. So I would be wary of Georgia State. Georgia State, we saw them a few years ago upset Tennessee in Knoxville. So I would not take Georgia State lightly. Vanderbilt's looking to go 3-0. It's been a while since they've been in that position. And Diego Pavia, about 75% completion, 22 or 29. He's a good quarterback, brings a lot of energy and positive, confident feeling to the offense. And we know Vanderbilt through the years, they've struggled on that side of the ball as well as the defensive side. But when you have a quarterback, Doug, that's dynamic, you have a chance if you can keep it close. So they should be 3-0. Should be 3-0 playing Georgia State. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. One more game, Doug. I just have the last game. Toledo is 2-0. They beat UMass 38-23 from the MAC, playing Mississippi State. We had a loss against the Big 12 team, Arizona State, 30-3. They were losing. Mississippi State was losing 30-3. They came back to make it close 30-23, but they did not have a good start, and consequently, they ended up losing. So I'm sure they're looking for Blake Chapin, the transfer quarterback from Baylor, and that offense to continue to improve, but they have to have some line play, Doug, defensive line play. Arizona State had a lot of yards, a couple hundred yards, or maybe 200-300 yards rushing the football. It's hard to win, Doug, when the other team dominates and holds the football, and you have an offense that's sitting on the sideline getting cold.
That's right. You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
So that's to be a pretty interesting game between Toledo and Mississippi State.
Yeah, Mississippi State needs to win that game.
Yeah. All right. So back on me for the ACC. I got North Carolina versus North Carolina Central. There's no spread on this one, but players to watch are running back Jamari Taylor. Yeah, he had 128 yards last game against Alabama State, but he's got what it takes to carry the load. And so I'm looking forward to seeing what he can do against North Carolina. And the quarterback, Connor Harrell, he got to start because their UNC's starting quarterback, Max Johnson, he got put out of the game in a serious injury, so he's not even able. He's not able.
He's injured. Yeah, early in the season, he got injured right away. Yeah, the first game, I think. Yeah, I think Connor Harrell, is he not from Alabama? Is he not from maybe Alabaster Thompson High School? Maybe.
I believe so. I believe he's from down there.
I think he is. I think he's from Alabama.
Yeah, so that's going to be a pretty interesting game, a pretty good matchup between those in-state rivals. So then next we got Old Dominion versus Virginia Tech. That's a 14-point favorite. Old Dominion will be at home. And so Old Dominion, that game is going to be exciting. It's going to be on ESPN. And sounds like a basketball game too, right? But last game, the players to watch are their linebacker. The linebacker play, and they had double-digit tackles in the last game. So look, both of these teams have great defensive AP, great defenses. So what do you get when you have two great defenses, right? You got typically a low-scoring game. So, so that's why you see that that you're going to have, your quarterback's going to have a difficult time getting the ball out, and because of these linebackers, the running game is going to be probably stagnant on both sides. So you got to air it out. So we'll see what happens, because that's going to be a very interesting game.
Yeah, Virginia Tech. They were beaten by Vanderbilt in the SEC, and then Old Dominion, Doug, they played South Carolina very strong. They were ahead of them for quite a few minutes in that ball game. South Carolina eked it out. The score was 23-19. So Old Dominion is not afraid to play a Power 5 team, and they're at home.
Yep, they're at home. So we talked about Wake Forest and Ole Miss already. Then the last one I have on my list is Maryland at Virginia. And it looks like, again, it won't be an easy road. And guess what, AP? This is an 8 p.m. kickoff. Who plays football? Hey, who plays?
Later kickoff.
That's a late game.
Pretty late, yeah. And 9 o'clock usually is the latest on the East Coast. Usually it's about 9 o'clock. That's the latest they would like to start, I think. But 8 o'clock is pretty late as well. Virginia had that 1-point victory at Wake Forest in Winston-Salem, 31-30 last week. So they're a competitive team. And Maryland was upset, I think, by Michigan State. Doug, was that right? Maybe.
Yeah. And Virginia's trying to hold on. They got home field advantage, so we'll see how they play out.
Is Maryland the favorite, Doug, by a couple points, maybe?
There's no spread that I see. No, I don't see any spread.
Yeah, I think Maryland maybe a couple points. But anyway, Doug, that's the last of the ACC games, correct? We wrapped it up. Another edition, edition number 3, episode 3 of AP and DP, SEC, ACC conference coverage. And we'd like to thank our audience, and make sure you subscribe to the show. And we'll be back next week with another edition. We really appreciate it. Thank you, Doug. Thank you, DP.
Thank you, great job.
Likewise.